You ever think you know someone? Like, really know them? Yeah, me too. I thought I knew the people closest to me. Figured there were lines nobody would cross, no matter what. Turns out, I was dead wrong. My name is Jason Mitchell. I am 31 years old, and this is how I found out that some folks will do absolutely anything to get what they want, no matter who they hurt along the way. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March when my boss called me into his office. I had been grinding away for 4 years as a project manager at this tech firm in Austin, Texas. Long hours, weekends at the office, missing family stuff because I was chasing that next level. And finally, it paid off. I was being promoted to Director of Commercial Operations. I could not stop grinning like an idiot. First thing I did was call my wife Rachel and my younger brother Marcus to share the news. I said, let's celebrate tonight at Bellissimo. That is this fancy Italian spot where dinner runs you more than most people make in a day. But I earned this. I worked my tail off for 4 years to get here. I got to the restaurant first, wore that charcoal gray suit Rachel always said made me look sharp. I picked a corner table, somewhere private where we could really celebrate without a bunch of strangers in our business. The place was packed with corporate types and couples dressed to the nines, the kind of place where I finally felt like I belonged after years of clawing my way up. When I saw them walk in together, something felt off right away. Rachel had this huge smile on her face that I had not seen in months, and Marcus, my baby brother, looked nervous as hell. He always got uncomfortable in expensive places, said they made him feel like a fraud. But that night, there was something else going on, some kind of tension hanging in the air that I could not quite pin down. Rachel came over and hugged me. She said, "Congratulations, Jay. I'm so proud of you." But there was something weird about the way she said it. Too much enthusiasm, you know? Like she was acting in a play or something. We ordered a $200 bottle of wine. I started telling them about the new projects I would be running, the 40% raise, the chance to work on international deals. Rachel listened real close. Too close. Marcus kept messing with his napkin like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Then Rachel cut me off right in the middle of talking about my new salary. She said, "Actually, Jay, we have some news to share too." She reached across the table and grabbed Marcus's hand, and my stomach just dropped. I don't even know why, just this gut feeling that something bad was about to happen. She said, "I'm pregnant." Everything stopped. I mean, literally stopped. The voices in the restaurant turned into this distant buzzing sound. The lights seemed to flicker, and I just stared at my wife's hand holding my brother's hand like it was some kind of hallucination. Pregnant. My wife Rachel was pregnant with my brother Marcus's baby. Marcus finally spoke up. His voice came out all shaky. He said, "I know this is complicated, Jason, but it happened. We fell in love, man." They just sat there, looking at me, waiting for me to explode, I guess, waiting for me to make some big scene that would give everyone else in the restaurant something to gossip about later. But I could not move, could not think, could not do anything except stare. My brother, Marcus, the guy I helped through college when our parents could not afford it, the guy who lived on my couch for 6 months when he lost his job, the guy I got hired at a dealership through a friend. He was sitting there holding my wife's hand, telling me they made a baby together on the night I got the biggest promotion of my life. I managed to get out one question. I said, "How long?" Rachel ran her hand over her stomach. She was not even showing yet. She said, 4 months. It started right after your birthday party." My birthday had been in November. It was March. 4 months of lying, 4 months of sneaking around, 4 months of them laughing behind my back while I worked 12-hour days trying to build a future for me and Rachel. I said, "What do you want me to say?" Rachel actually laughed. It was this nervous little laugh, but it sounded genuine. She said, "Look, Jay, I know this is not easy, but these things happen. People fall in love. and the baby needs both parents together, you know? I picked up my wallet real slow, left $100 on the table, more than enough to cover my drinks. I stood up and said, "I am going home. You two do whatever you want." As I walked toward the exit, I heard Marcus call my name, but I did not turn around. In the mirror on the wall, I could see them still sitting there. Rachel was smiling. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying the whole thing in my head, trying to figure out how I missed it, how I did not see this coming. Marcus had always lived in my shadow growing up, and I know it bothered him. I was the older brother, the responsible one, the one who got good grades without even trying that hard. He was the younger one, the one Mom and Dad always made excuses for, the one who got away with everything. We grew up in a regular middle-class family in San Antonio. Dad was an accountant at an oil company. Mom taught elementary school. We were not rich, but we didn't struggle either. Still, Marcus always acted like he deserved more than what he had, without putting in the work, like success was all about luck or who you knew, not busting your ass and making sacrifices. Marcus studied marketing at a state school, graduated with average grades. Since then, he bounced from job to job, always complaining that nobody recognized how talented he was. Our parents tried to keep things equal between us. When I got a new truck, they helped Marcus get a used one. When I started making good money, they gave him extra cash for rent, like they were trying to make up for my success by keeping Marcus at the same level artificially. He always asked about my salary, my investments, what my place was worth. He said it was just curiosity, but there was this intensity to it that bothered me. Now I understood. It wasn't curiosity. It was straight-up envy mixed with greed that I was too blind to see. I met Rachel at a work event about 6 years ago. Marcus made sure to tell me she was out of my league. She was gorgeous, smart, worked as a sales rep for a pharmaceutical company. She made decent money, around $6,000 a month, but nothing compared to my $90,000 a year salary that soon jumped to $140,000. Still, I fell hard for her. She was fun, spontaneous, made me laugh after brutal days at the office. Rachel had this carefree way about her that balanced out my tendency to overthink everything and plan 3 steps ahead. Marcus was always polite to Rachel, but I noticed this weird tension, especially when we all went out and the bill came. I never made a big deal about paying for nice restaurants or concert tickets that cost $200 each. That was just part of life. But I saw Marcus watching us with this calculating look that I should have paid attention to. One time, Rachel and I took Marcus out for his birthday. We went to this steakhouse where dinner ran about $150 per person. After a few drinks, Marcus said, "Must be nice having someone who can afford places like this. You hit the jackpot with my brother, Rachel." She just laughed it off, said, "We're partners, we take care of each other." But Marcus kept pushing. He said, "No, seriously, Jason's got it made. Big salary, nice condo, investments growing every month. You're set for life." Looking back now, I see what he was doing. He was planting seeds, getting Rachel to think about money, about what I had, about what she could have access to. I got home and the condo looked exactly like I left it that morning. Bed made, dishes clean, everything in its place. It was weird how your whole life could fall apart and things just stayed exactly the same. Rachel's stuff was still everywhere. Her toothbrush in the bathroom, her clothes in the closet, that stupid coffee mug with her name on it that she got from some work conference. I sat down on the couch, still wearing my suit and tie, and just stared at nothing. My brain felt numb, like it had shut down the part that processes emotions. I knew I should be crying or breaking things or something, but all I felt was this emptiness. Rachel did not come home that night, obviously. At 2 in the morning, I got a text. It said, "I am staying at Marcus's place. We will talk tomorrow." She did not even say his name, just Marcus's place, like they had been together for years, like I did not even matter anymore. Like our 5 years of marriage were just some inconvenient speed bump they finally got past. I stayed up all night, walking around the condo, trying to figure out how I got here, trying to remember if there were signs I'd missed. Rachel had been working late a lot in the past few months. Marcus kept asking about my schedule whenever he called. They showed up together at the restaurant like it was the most normal thing in the world. Now that I thought about it, Marcus had been around a lot more recently. Said he had meetings in Austin for work. Marcus sold cars at a dealership in San Antonio. Austin was only 90 minutes away. Why did he always stay at hotels instead of crashing on our couch like he used to? When the sun came up, I was still on the couch, still in my suit. My phone showed 19 missed calls from my mom. Marcus had told her everything. Probably gave her some romantic version where he and Rachel were star-crossed lovers fighting against fate. I called in sick to work. I never called in sick. My assistant Jennifer could tell something was seriously wrong from my voice. She said, "Call me if you need anything, Jason. This must be important." She was right. It was important. My entire life had just blown up. I went to take a shower, stood under the hot water for probably 30 minutes, and that is when I finally lost it. Not dramatic movie crying, just this exhausted, bone-tired crying of a guy who just lost the two most important people in his life at once. My wife and my brother. The two people I trusted most in the world had stabbed me in the back in the worst possible way. When I got out of the shower, I had 5 texts from Marcus. They said, "Jay, man, we need to talk. This is not how we wanted you to find out. Call me, please. I know it is hard, but we can work this out like adults." I deleted every single one without answering. I spent the whole day doing nothing. Watched TV, ordered pizza, ignored my phone that kept ringing every couple hours. I needed time to process the fact that my life had completely changed overnight. That evening, Marcus showed up to get some of his things. He still had a key from when he stayed with us before. Still felt entitled to just walk into my place like nothing happened. He tried to explain while he threw clothes into a duffel bag. He said, "It wasn't planned, Jason. It just happened. Rachel was going through a rough time. She needed someone to talk to." I said, "How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" He stopped packing. He said, "Officially, since December, 5 months. 5 months of lies. 5 months of fake family dinners where they sat across from me pretending everything was fine. 5 months of them sneaking around while I worked 60-hour weeks trying to get promoted so I could give Rachel a better life." I said, "I'm getting a divorce. You can tell Rachel to find a lawyer." Marcus actually had the nerve to look hurt. He said, "Jason, it does not have to be like this. We can handle everything ourselves, split things fairly without making it ugly." Fairly. He wanted to split things fairly, like betrayal was just some business transaction we could negotiate. After Marcus left with 2 bags of his stuff, I called Robert Hayes. He was my college buddy who became a family law attorney in Houston. I told him everything. Tried to keep my voice steady, but failed pretty hard. Robert listened without interrupting. When he finished, he let out a long breath. He said, "Jason, man, I am so sorry. I know how much you loved her, and your own brother. That is beyond messed up." He paused. Then he said, "About the divorce, I need you to bring all your marriage paperwork, bank statements, property deeds, investment accounts, everything. I'll build the strongest case I can for you." I said, "Robert, I don't care about the money. I just want this over with as fast as possible." He said, "Don't say that, Jason. You worked your ass off to build what you have. You're not going to just hand half of it over to someone who cheated on you. Do you even know how much your assets are worth?" I didn't have an exact number, but I knew it was a lot. My condo was worth at least $450,000. I had maybe $120,000 in investments, a stake in a startup worth around $60,000, plus my new salary of $200,000 a year. I scheduled a meeting for the following week. Then I remembered I needed to dig up all the important documents. I went to my office where I kept everything organized in filing cabinets. Bank statements from the last 3 years, tax returns, investment statements from Fidelity and Vanguard. Looking at it all on paper, I felt proud of what I built by 31. But now it all seemed so fragile, like it could disappear because of a divorce. I grabbed the folder with my marriage documents: birth certificate, marriage license from Texas County, contract for the condo purchase. Then I stopped. There was something on the marriage license that caught my eye. It said, "Separate property, complete separation of assets." Why complete separation? Most couples in Texas went with community property. That's when I remembered. Prenuptial agreement. I had insisted on a prenup 6 years ago. I practically ran to the safe I had installed in my bedroom closet. It had been so long since I opened it that I almost forgot the combination. Inside, between my passport and the condo deed, was a sealed envelope from the Travis County Clerk's office. Prenuptial agreement. Jason Mitchell and Rachel Ann Porter. My hands shook as I opened it. I remembered insisting on this back then, but the details were fuzzy. It had been 6 years. I was so happy and in love that the legal stuff seemed like just paperwork we had to deal with. But now, sitting alone in my bedroom at 3 in the morning, holding those pages, I felt something I had not felt in days. Hope. Maybe I would not lose everything I built. Maybe something in these papers could protect me from Rachel's greed and Marcus's irresponsibility. I turned on the lamp and read every single word like my life depended on it, because it kinda did. The memory came flooding back. It was a Saturday morning in May, 3 weeks before our wedding. I was 25 and had just closed on my first condo, a nice 2-bedroom place in downtown Austin that cost me $375,000. Rachel was stressed about wedding costs getting out of control. She said, "Jason, are you sure we need all this? The catering is $18,000. The photographer is $10,000. The venue is $15,000. That is a lot of money." It was a lot of money, especially for her making $6,000 a month. For me, pulling in nearly $12,000 monthly, it was an investment in our special day. But I understood her concern. She grew up in a family that watched every penny. I said, "Rachel, relax. I will cover most of it. You contribute what you can. What matters is us being together." That's when I brought up the prenup, not because I didn't trust her, but because my lawyer at the time said it was smart for someone with significant assets. When I mentioned it to Rachel on a Wednesday night, she freaked out. She said, "Prenup? Are you serious? Those are for rich people who don't trust each other. We're supposed to be partners, Jason. Partners don't need contracts." I said, "It's not about trust, Rachel. It's about legal protection for both of us." She said, "If you loved me, you wouldn't need a piece of paper protecting your precious money from me." It took me 2 weeks to convince her. I explained it was standard procedure, that it protected her too, that it was just smart planning. She finally agreed, but she was not happy about it. We went to the lawyer's office on a Thursday morning. Rachel showed up 20 minutes late, said she got stuck in traffic, but I could tell she was dragging her feet about the whole thing. Mr. Patterson was this older attorney with gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude. He explained the basic terms like he had done it 1,000 times before. He said, "Complete separation of assets. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage." He looked at both of us. He said, "It's important you both understand this protects both parties equally. If you acquire significant assets during the marriage, Rachel, those will be protected too. Do you understand?" Rachel barely looked at the papers. She said, "Yes, I understand. Each person keeps what's theirs. Fine." She did not understand. Rachel never showed interest in legal or financial stuff. When I tried to talk about investments or retirement planning, she would change the subject or make jokes about me being too serious about money. But she signed every page, 15 pages of dense legal text, specific clauses about property, investments, future businesses, inheritance. Rachel signed it all like she was signing for a package delivery. Mr. Patterson stamped everything and filed the copies. He said, "Now you can get married in peace. I hope I never see you back here professionally." On the drive home in my truck, Rachel said, "I still think that whole contract thing was unnecessary, but if it makes you feel better, whatever. What matters is in 3 weeks, we'll be husband and wife forever." She really didn't get what she had just signed. For Rachel, it was just another annoying paperwork we had to deal with before the wedding. She didn't realize she was giving up any claim to my present and future money, and I, totally in love and sure we would be happy forever, didn't care that she didn't pay attention. After all, love was more important than any contract, right? We were going to build a life together, share everything, be a modern couple. The prenup was just a formality we would never need. Man, was I wrong. Now, 6 years later, alone at 3 in the morning with the contract in my hands, I finally understood the value of that annoying paperwork. I read every page with complete focus, like I was deciphering a secret code that could save my life. The legal words that seemed like boring formality back then now jumped off the page like treasure. Complete separation of property. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. He looked at both of us. He said, "It's important you both understand this protects both parties equally. If you acquire significant assets during the marriage, Rachel, those will be protected too. Do you understand?" Rachel barely looked at the papers. She said, "Yes, I understand. Each person keeps what's theirs. Fine." She did not understand. Rachel never showed interest in legal or financial stuff. When I tried to talk about investments or retirement planning, she would change the subject or make jokes about me being too serious about money. But she signed every page, 15 pages of dense legal text, specific clauses about property, investments, future businesses, inheritance. Rachel signed it all like she was signing for a package delivery. Mr. Patterson stamped everything and filed the copies. He said, "Now you can get married in peace. I hope I never see you back here professionally." On the drive home in my truck, Rachel said, "I still think that whole contract thing was unnecessary, but if it makes you feel better, whatever. What matters is in 3 weeks, we'll be husband and wife forever." She really didn't get what she had just signed. For Rachel, it was just another annoying paperwork we had to deal with before the wedding. She didn't realize she was giving up any claim to my present and future money, and I, totally in love and sure we would be happy forever, didn't care that she didn't pay attention. After all, love was more important than any contract, right? We were going to build a life together, share everything, be a modern couple. The prenup was just a formality we would never need. Man, was I wrong. Now, 6 years later, alone at 3 in the morning with the contract in my hands, I finally understood the value of that annoying paperwork. I read every page with complete focus, like I was deciphering a secret code that could save my life. The legal words that seemed like boring formality back then now jumped off the page like treasure. Complete separation of property. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. He looked at both of us. He said, "It's important you both understand this protects both parties equally. If you acquire significant assets during the marriage, Rachel, those will be protected too. Do you understand?" Rachel barely looked at the papers. She said, "Yes, I understand. Each person keeps what's theirs. Fine." She did not understand. Rachel never showed interest in legal or financial stuff. When I tried to talk about investments or retirement planning, she would change the subject or make jokes about me being too serious about money. But she signed every page, 15 pages of dense legal text, specific clauses about property, investments, future businesses, inheritance. Rachel signed it all like she was signing for a package delivery. Mr. Patterson stamped everything and filed the copies. He said, "Now you can get married in peace. I hope I never see you back here professionally." On the drive home in my truck, Rachel said, "I still think that whole contract thing was unnecessary, but if it makes you feel better, whatever. What matters is in 3 weeks, we'll be husband and wife forever." She really didn't get what she had just signed. For Rachel, it was just another annoying paperwork we had to deal with before the wedding. She didn't realize she was giving up any claim to my present and future money, and I, totally in love and sure we would be happy forever,
didn't care that she didn't pay attention. After all, love was more important than any contract, right? We were going to build a life together, share everything, be a modern couple. The prenup was just a formality we would never need. Man, was I wrong. Now, 6 years later, alone at 3 in the morning with the contract in my hands, I finally understood the value of that annoying paperwork. I read every page with complete focus, like I was deciphering a secret code that could save my life. The legal words that seemed like boring formality back then now jumped off the page like treasure. Complete separation of property. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. He looked at both of us. He said, "It's important you both understand this protects both parties equally. If you acquire significant assets during the marriage, Rachel, those will be protected too. Do you understand?" Rachel barely looked at the papers. She said, "Yes, I understand. Each person keeps what's theirs. Fine." She did not understand. Rachel never showed interest in legal or financial stuff. When I tried to talk about investments or retirement planning, she would change the subject or make jokes about me being too serious about money. But she signed every page, 15 pages of dense legal text, specific clauses about property.
3 weeks passed since that nightmare dinner at Bellissimo. 3 weeks where Marcus came by to grab the rest of his stuff, always with Rachel there like he needed backup or protection. 3 weeks where my mom called every day trying to get me to forgive them, like betrayal was just some misunderstanding we could fix with a heart-to-heart talk. Mom said, "Jason, honey, I know you are hurt, but these things happen. Marcus is your brother. Rachel is carrying a baby. Cannot you think about the child?" Think about the baby. The baby that my wife was using as an excuse to steal my brother and my money along with him. I said, "Mom, I am not discussing this. Rachel and I are getting divorced. End of story." She said, "But Jason, you built a life together. The condo, your plans for the future. Are you really going to throw it all away?" "Yeah, Mom, the condo, my plans." She actually believed Rachel had a right to half of everything. Marcus probably filled the whole family's heads with stories about how I was being selfish and petty for not accepting the betrayal gracefully. In the 4th week, I called Marcus. He answered immediately like he'd been waiting by the phone. I said, "Hey, Marcus, I've been thinking about everything. Maybe you guys are right. There's no point holding grudges. We're all adults. These things happen." Silence on the other end. He was not expecting this. He said, "Really? You're okay with this?" I said, "I'm trying to accept it. I mean, you two fell in love, right? It wasn't anyone's fault, and now there's a baby to think about." He said, "Wow, Jason, you have no idea how relieved I am. Rachel was so worried you were going to make this difficult, drag out the divorce, make everything complicated." Complicated. Like I was the complicated one in this situation. I said, "Not at all. Can we meet up and talk about how to handle everything without fighting? Just settle things like adults. Maybe dinner again? Get some closure, you know?" Marcus said, "Yeah, man, that would be great. Rachel will be so happy." I said, "Cool. Let's do Bellissimo again, Saturday night, where it all started. Seems fitting." He said, "Perfect. Jason, you cannot imagine how much this means, especially with the baby coming." I hung up smiling. Saturday night was going to be very interesting. I spent the next few days preparing like an actor getting ready for the biggest performance of his life. I picked my outfit, a sharp navy suit that said, "I'm doing just fine without you." I practiced in the mirror, keeping a calm, accepting expression, like I had made peace with everything. Robert thought the whole plan was risky. He said, "Jason, are you sure about this? It might be cleaner to just have me send them the divorce papers and be done with it." I said, "Robert, they humiliated me in public. They planned the whole thing to watch me fall apart in front of a restaurant full of people. They deserve the same treatment." He said, "And if they figure out what you're doing?" I said, "They will not. They're too busy planning how to spend my money." I showed up at Bellissimo Saturday night at 8 on the dot, asked for the same table as last time. The hostess recognized me,
Said, "Hopefully tonight will be better than last time, sir." Lady, you have no idea. Marcus and Rachel arrived together, but this time everything was different. They were relaxed, smiling, holding hands like a real couple who could finally be public. Rachel wore a dress that showed off her small but noticeable baby bump. Rachel hugged me. She said, "Jason, thank you so much for doing this, for being mature about everything." I said, "Of course, you two look good together. How's the pregnancy going?" She said, "Great. We've been talking about names. Marcus wants Ethan if it's a boy. I like Noah better." Marcus pulled out Rachel's chair, a gentlemanly move he never did for any of his previous girlfriends. They thought they were celebrating, thought they had gotten away with everything. Marcus said, "So, Jason, about the divorce, we wanted to suggest handling it all amicably, split things fairly, no lawyers, no drama." I said, "Split things fairly? Tell me what you think is fair." Rachel and Marcus looked at each other. They had practiced this conversation. Rachel said, "Well, we could sell the condo and split it 50-50, the investments too, and with your new promotion, some temporary support would help while Marcus and I get settled with the baby." Support. She actually thought I would pay them money while they raised a kid together, while they lived in a place bought with my hard work. I slowly reached into my jacket pocket. Marcus and Rachel watched, probably thinking I was about to pull out divorce papers we could sign right there, a friendly settlement that would make them rich. Instead, I put the courthouse envelope with the prenuptial agreement on the table. The old paper made a loud sound when it hit the wood. I said, "Before we talk about splitting anything, we need to clear something up, something you both seem to have forgotten." Marcus frowned at the envelope. He said, "What is that?" I said, "It's our prenuptial agreement, Rachel, the one you signed 6 years ago, remember? The one you said was unnecessary rich people stuff?" The color drained from her face instantly. Rachel said, "What agreement? We made a prenup?" Marcus grabbed the papers and started reading. His hands were shaking. I said, "We sure did. Complete separation of assets. Remember what that means, Rachel?" Rachel picked up the papers. Her eyes moved over the words, trying to process legal language she clearly didn't understand 6 years ago. She said, "Okay, Jason, calm down. Even with an agreement, we were married. There's still community property. Assets acquired during marriage get divided." I said, "Not when there's complete separation of assets, Rachel. Right here it says, each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during marriage. Everything I bought during our marriage stays mine." Marcus said, "But that can't be legal. The condo, the investments. I mean, Rachel lived there. She contributed to expenses." I said, "Rachel contributed maybe $400 a month for groceries and utilities. Marcus, I paid $2,200 for the mortgage, $300 for HOA fees, internet, electricity, insurance. Her $400 doesn't give her property rights to a $450,000 condo." Rachel was frantically flipping through the pages, looking for some escape, some loophole. She said, "What about alimony? You make way more than me. I have a right to support." I smiled for the first time that night. I said, "Page 6, Section 4, Spousal Support Waiver. Both parties hereby waive any right to spousal support, alimony, or maintenance. Rachel gave up her right to alimony when she signed this 6 years ago." Marcus said, "I didn't know what I was signing. This is not fair. You tricked me." I said, "Marcus, you weren't even there when Rachel signed this. And Rachel, you were present when Mr. Patterson explained every clause. You said you understood. There are witnesses. Everything is registered at the courthouse." The look on Rachel's face was changing from confusion to pure horror. Reality was hitting like a freight train. She said, "So you're saying I get nothing after 6 years of marriage?" I said, "That's exactly what I'm saying. Zero. Zilch. Nothing. You leave this marriage exactly like you entered it, with your financed car, your clothes, and your credit card debts. Everything I built stays with me." Marcus ran his hair through his hair. He finally understood how badly they miscalculated. He said, "Jason, come on, man. We can work something out. You can't leave us with nothing. We have a baby coming." I said, "You have a baby coming, Marcus, not me. And with your $45,000 car salesman salary, supporting a kid is going to be real tight, especially after child support." Rachel said, "Child support? What are you talking about?" I said, "The father has to pay child support, Rachel. In Texas, it's usually 20% of net income for one kid. If Marcus makes $45,000 gross, maybe $35,000 net after taxes, 20% of that is $7,000 a year, or around $600 a month, every month, until the kid turns 18. They looked at each other in complete panic. They clearly did not do this math. I said, "Plus medical costs, daycare, clothes, diapers, formula. Kids are expensive, guys, real expensive." Marcus sank back in his chair. He said, "Oh my God, Rachel, how are we going to afford this?" I said, "Good question, Marcus. Let me help you out. You make $45,000. After taxes and child support, you'll have maybe $27,000 left. Rachel, you make what, $70,000? After taxes, maybe $55,000? So together you'll have around $82,000 for 2 adults and a baby. Where are you going to live?" Rachel whispered, "I guess my apartment." I said, "That 1-bedroom apartment you rent for $1,100 a month? Going to be pretty cramped with a baby, don't you think?"
Rachel tried one last desperate move. She said, "Jason, I'm your wife. We have history together. Cannot you help us just a little? Think about the baby, your niece or nephew." I said, "Rachel, you are not my wife anymore. You are my soon-to-be ex-wife who cheated on me with my brother because you thought you would get half my money in the divorce. You calculated wrong. Now you have to live with the consequences." Marcus said, "But we're family, Jason. Brothers. You're really going to abandon us like this?" I said, "Family does not betray family, Marcus. Family does not humiliate family in expensive restaurants. Family does not sleep with their brother's wife because they're jealous of what he built." Rachel started crying. Real tears this time. She said, "What are we supposed to do?" I stood up from the table, left $200 bills, more than enough to cover my meal and drinks. I said, "Your lawyers can contact mine, Robert Hayes in Houston. He has all the information you need." Marcus stood up fast. He said, "Jason, wait, please. We made a mistake, a huge mistake. Cannot we talk about this?" I said, "You had 6 months to talk to me, Marcus. 6 months to be honest. You chose to lie and sneak around instead. Now you get to see what that choice cost you." Rachel said, "Jason, I loved you. I really did. This was not about money." I said, "If it was not about money, Rachel, then the prenup should not matter, right? You should be fine raising a kid on $80,000 a year combined income. Plenty of people do it." Marcus said, "We can't afford childcare on that. Rachel will have to quit her job to stay home with the baby." I said, "Sounds like you two have some tough decisions to make then." I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Rachel crying harder and Marcus cursing under his breath. In the parking lot, sitting in my truck, I let myself feel it. Pure satisfaction. They tried to destroy me and ended up destroying themselves. My phone rang. It was Robert. He said, "Well, how did your performance go?" I said, "Better than Broadway, man. You should have seen their faces when they realized they were getting nothing." Robert laughed. He said, "Jason, you are diabolical, and I completely approve. I can file the divorce papers Monday. In 60 days, you will be free, and they will still be poor." I drove home smiling bigger than I had smiled in months, maybe years. 8 months later, my life had transformed into something I never imagined possible. The divorce was finalized in exactly 60 days. Marcus did not contest it. Any decent lawyer would have told him he had 0 chance of winning. Robert handled everything perfectly. I officially became single on a sunny October morning. Through social media and my mom's phone calls, I kept tabs on what Marcus and Rachel were dealing with. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You know you should look away, but you cannot. Marcus was still selling cars, but the economy tanked and luxury car sales dropped. His income fell to around $35,000 a year, way less than before.
With the $600 in monthly child support automatically deducted, he was barely scraping by. Rachel had moved back in with her parents after the baby was born, a little girl they named Emma. The one-bedroom apartment was impossible with an infant. Even splitting bills with Marcus, they couldn't afford anything bigger. Rachel's parents, both retired and on fixed income, now had 3 adults and a baby living in their small house. Rachel tried to keep doing pharmaceutical sales, but with a newborn it was impossible to work full-time. My mom kept trying to guilt me. She said, "Jason, Marcus is struggling, driving 2 hours each way between San Antonio and Austin for work, spending a fortune on gas he can't afford." I said, "That is unfortunate, Mom, but Marcus is an adult who made choices, now he gets to live with them." Meanwhile, I had moved on spectacularly. With the divorce done and the betrayal behind me, my career took off like a rocket. As director of commercial operations, I crushed every target. My bonuses put me over $250,000 a year total. The startup I was invested in got new funding. My stake tripled in value. In January, I sold my condo for $550,000, a $175,000 profit in 6 years. I bought a sick townhouse closer to downtown Austin. 3 bedrooms, 2 floors, rooftop terrace, paid $680,000 cash. I spent another $100,000 renovating it. Modern kitchen, smart home technology, home gym, office with skyline views. The place ended up in Austin Living magazine. Jennifer, my assistant, came to see it. She said, "Jason, this is incredible. You really built something amazing here." She was right. At 32, I had a net worth over $1.2 million, a solid career, and complete freedom to do whatever I wanted. I traveled to Europe twice that year. London, Amsterdam, Berlin, always first class, always the best hotels. I bought clothes without checking prices, ate at restaurants I would have thought were too expensive before, lived exactly how I wanted. The loneliness? I didn't feel it. After being betrayed by the people I trusted most, being alone felt peaceful. I didn't have to explain my decisions to anyone, didn't have to compromise, didn't have to share my space or my time. I started seeing a therapist, not because I was depressed, but because I wanted to grow. Dr. Sarah Martinez helped me understand years of toxic family dynamics I just accepted as normal. She said, "Jason, you spent your whole life taking care of everyone around you. Your brother, your wife, your parents. When was the last time someone took care of you?" That question hit me hard. I'd always been the provider, the responsible one, the problem solver, but nobody ever asked what I needed. Dr. Martinez said, "Maybe it's time to put yourself first. Figure out who you are when you're not supporting everyone else." That's exactly what I did. During the holidays, I got several messages from Marcus, first trying to reconcile, then asking for money directly. The text said, "Jason, I know you're angry, but we're brothers. Emma is your niece. Can't you at least help with baby stuff? Jason, expenses are killing us. Diapers, formula, doctor visits. I'm drowning here, man. You're the only one who can help. Jay, please answer. We need help. You have so much money. Can't you spare anything?" I read them all without responding, finally blocked his number after the 15th message. My mom tried to mediate. She said, "Jason, whatever happened between you, the child is innocent. Don't you want to meet your niece?" I said, "Mom, when Marcus decided to sleep with my wife, he made a choice. Now he lives with the consequences. It's not my job to fix the problems he created." She said, "But you have so much. They have so little." I said, "I have,